hi. If you are watching this, and that means you are watching back on the recording, we are just about to go live in a few minutes. And so I just wanted to say, if you're not doing this live, and therefore chances are you're doing this on your own, then there are a couple of sections where we invite people to meet with fellow pilgrims. And in those sections, that's when you want to have a journal and pen, and you can use that time instead to journal about those questions. So just pause the recording at that point, do journaling for as long as you like, and then get back to the recording. It also means if you would like to take this journey with someone else watching with you, that could work really well as your fellow pilgrim. So that's another option. But if you're on your own, make sure you've got your journal, take this time for yourself. And I just so hope that you enjoy this journey and this pilgrimage. And yeah, I hope I do too, because we're about to go live. We're going to give it a few moments, but just whilst we're waiting, I invite you to pop in the chat where in the world you're joining us from. And also, hi, it's lovely to see your faces. Hello, hi. Yeah, pop in the chat where in the world you're joining us from, and also what's the weather like where you are, because we're about to take a very long walk together this evening. So what's the weather like? Now you can either tell us what the weather's like literally, or you might want to tell us what the weather's like inside. So if your emotions were weather, what would the weather be like for you right now? Because as we take our pilgrimage over this evening, the weather, our emotions are going to be our weather. So let us know where in the world you're joining us from. Welcome to people that are joining now. And what's the weather like where you are? And this isn't just my compulsive need as a British person to ask you about the weather. This is me trying to get a sense maybe of where you are emotionally at as well. So what's your weather like inside today? So we've got a few things in the chat. Welcome everyone. So we've got someone from Matlock. Very windy in New York. Stormy and foggy. Someone joining from Bristol. Got to think about my own weather. I think it's feeling quite, do you know, it matches up. We've got a thunderstorm just coming here, and I'm feeling that like just before something exciting, like I'm feeling very full of energy. I feel like the weather is representing where I am right now. Storm clouds outside. So I'm asking you, what's the weather like where you are, literally or emotionally, metaphorically, and where are you joining us from? So welcome to people who are joining us. Popping in the chat, what's the weather like, literally or emotionally where you are, and where are you joining us from? I like this, very descriptive. Outside warm and sunny, inside partly cloudy with a little bit of something. Pouring rain here. Yeah, yes, I'm near Derby, and yeah, it's feeling quite heavy, the energy. Okay, wonderful. Well, looks like we've got enough of us to make a start. If you're literally just joining, what we're sharing in the chat is where in the world we're joining from. We've got a lovely variety of people from all over, and what's the weather like where you are? Whether you want that to mean that literally or emotionally. What if your emotions were weather, what would that be like? Okay, I'm going to share with you a little bit about myself and this evening, and what you can expect is rainbow weather. Love it. What you can expect from this evening. We've got an hour and a half together, and then we will jump into our pilgrimage. So my name's Jo, for those of you that don't know me already, and last month I walked 160 kilometers of the Camino in Spain, and it was a really powerful experience for me in terms of working through and beyond my climate sorrows. So up until a couple of years ago, I was running one of the UK's fastest growing climate NGOs. I was the founder director there, and I was really, my antidote to my climate sorrow was my work in the world and being able to pour myself into climate activism. And due to kind of a whole range of different circumstances, work related and personal, I suffered the most spectacular burnout, and I was sort of in and out of hospital. I was housebound for a little while as well. I had to give up my job. And I thought about walking away from activism altogether. And that was until I realized I am definitely not the only person that is finding this difficult stuff to engage with. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to use my recovery from burnout as an extended research project in how to build resilience and restore some of the joy that can get lost in our climate activism. And so I spent a couple of years doing that and starting to run programs and retraining in the wellbeing space. But as part of my research, I went on the Camino, and it was so profound and so helpful. And I thought, is there a way I can recreate this for others? So that's what the hope is. So if you're just joining now, welcome, settle in. We've got an hour and a half together. And I thought I'd just kick off by sharing a little bit about the Camino with you and what you can expect from this evening. And then we are going to make a start on our virtual pilgrimage. So to do that, I think I'll share my screen with you. And I'll share a little bit, as I say, about my Camino experience. We'll then move into the pilgrimage, and then right at the end there's an offering that I've been working on for the last year and a half that I'd like to share with you as well. So here we go. Let's see. Hopefully you can all see this. Right. Just to mention, you can see that have you got a journal and pen and a weighted object to hold. So just whilst I'm doing my introduction, if you haven't got a journal and pen and you think you might like one, run and grab one. You don't need to have one, but it could be useful. But definitely if you've got some kind of weighted object, you can see here that I've got a stone. But it could be anything, you know, it could be a mug, it could be your phone, ideally not, but you know, whatever you can have around you as some kind of weighted object would be really useful. Okay, so a little bit about the Camino. So I walked part of that green route up in the top left there. And the Camino in Spain, if you don't know it, it's thousands of years old. It's associated now with the Christian tradition, but before that it was associated with pagan spiritual traditions. And it's walks from all over Europe that finish at Santiago de Compostelo city. And that's supposedly where one of Jesus' disciples, James, was buried. And that's why the shell is the symbol of the Camino, because it's like all these routes that come together at this single point. Now, I got to the cathedral in Santiago, and as impressive as it was, it didn't feel to me like the right end to my Camino experience, because I'm much more of a nature person. So I decided to keep going, and there's a kind of extra leg you can do to Finisterre or Fistera, as you can see here from Santiago, and that's right to the edge of the earth. That's what Fistera means, so to the sea. So I did this extra bit, and you can see me here at my arrival moment after 10 days walking. And one thing that you need to know about me to understand this experience from my perspective is that I'm not a walker. I'm not someone who enjoys walking very much at all. I didn't do as much training as I should have done. And as a result of that, I was in a lot of discomfort for a lot of my walks. So I had so many blisters that I actually had to begin naming them. So I had like Beatrice the Bountiful and Gertrude the Mighty and Barry the Blighter. And it was just a way of sort of trying to stay friends with my feet, because I was in so much pain and my muscles and all of that seriously aching. At one point I got a hip injury. I thought I was going to have to pull out. Very luckily I didn't have to, due to support the people around me and a bit of good fortune. But also we were staying in hostels, so you rely on the hospitality of the Spanish people, which is amazing. And so for that reason, the Camino is very very reasonably priced. You can do it for not a lot of money. You can get a full board and accommodation for about €20, but the trade-off is that you share rooms with other people. So I didn't always have great sleep. And then to top it all off, I got neurovirus, not coronavirus, but I got neurovirus towards the end of my journey, which in a joint hostel was really, really grim. So I was in a lot of discomfort. And the reason why I'm mentioning this to you is because what was so transformative about this experience for me was that I had chosen to be in this discomfort. And because I had chosen it, I had a very different relationship to the sorrow or discomfort or pain that I was experiencing to my usual encounter with discomfort or pain. And I felt much more empowered. And it was a case of figuring out, okay, you know, what's my next step look like? Where do I go from here? How do I bear this? And as I worked through this kind of physical discomfort and with the community of people around me, my inner discomfort, my climate sorrow began to shift, because I began to realize, hey, I've got tools at my disposal and things that I can work with in order to overcome this sorrow. And even though I was carrying this discomfort and my climate sorrow, what came with it was this immense experience of joy and gratitude that I got to do this walk and I got to see this landscape and meet these people. And I began to see, hey, this joy and this sorrow, they're somehow interconnected. And so that's really the theme of our walk and our pilgrimage this evening is, you know, what does it mean to engage with the sorrow and the climate sorrow that we feel? And when I talk about climate sorrow, I'm talking about eco-anxiety and eco-grief, and I'm talking about the anger and the overwhelm and the confusion and all of those things coming together under that barrier of climate sorrow. And how can we travel through that this evening and maybe find a little bit of our joy? So a little bit more about the Camino, just to mention, it's something that's walked by a few 100,000 people every year. It's been walked for hundreds of years. This is a bit of a silly picture of me walking there. Some of it goes by the sea, some of it is super rural, very picturesque and beautiful, and then some of it, this is the cathedral where we end up, is very urban. So you get to decide, because this pilgrimage is in your mind's eye, you get to decide this evening where you travel. But there will be a few nature spots, because that's my kind of favorite kind of pilgrimage. But you get to decide where you'd like to go from there. Okay, so final thing to say. You'll see in this picture here, if you have a look right at the back, there's a way marker. Now, these are positioned all along the Camino, and they tell you exactly where you need to go. And so you don't need a map and you don't need your phone. And they also tell you how long to your destination. So I thought, let's have way markers for our pilgrimage. So we've got a way marker here. This is our way marker. We've got an hour to go. And we've got a question to reflect on before we set off as well, which is, what's the weather like for you today? So if you joined at the beginning, you'll know I asked that question, what's the weather like for you today? And this time I am definitely asking you, what's the weather like inside for you today? So at this point, I just invite you now to close your eyes and just turn inwards a little bit. We're going to spend quite a lot of time with our eyes closed, working imaginatively in our mind's eye. We're also going to have a chance to meet some of our fellow pilgrims along the way, but just tune in. What's the weather like inside today? If you had to attribute weather to your emotion, and then imagine that weather as the backdrop for your Camino. Have a little think about what you might need to wear for your pilgrimage. And we're going to make a start. So I invite you in your mind's eye to pick up your backpack and put it on your back. And as you do, pick up your weighted object in your hand. You might just want to bounce it up and down a little bit in your hand with your eyes closed, just to feel what it feels like, this heavy object. Feel it in your hand. And then take a moment to connect with your climate sorrow. Whatever that means to you. The heavier parts of what it means to be awake to what's happening in the world right now. Now, it could be that you get thoughts. You can observe those. It could be that you get emotions. You might want to name those. It could be simply that you get a bodily sensation when you bring into your heart and mind your climate sorrow. So just take a moment to notice your climate sorrow. Not so much that it overwhelms you, but enough that you can get a taste of it. And then imagine if you put out your other hand, that your climate sorrow is in your empty hand, and you're simply going to take that and place it on top of your heavy object, and imagine that you're putting your climate sorrow into this heavy object. Press one hand down on the other, put that climate sorrow into your heavy object, and then place it down beside you. It's going to be there with you throughout this pilgrimage. It's not going anywhere, and it's there with you. But in placing it down, we're also creating some space and seeing what else needs to be felt, what else needs to be heard. Okay. I'm going to invite you now just to keep your eyes closed, or to close them back down again. Just move into as comfortable a seat as you can, because we're really going to set off now. And in a moment, you're going to hear some footsteps. Now, these are your footsteps that we're going to be taking. And we're going to be taking these footsteps. I just had a moment of remembering to tell you, you'll know already, but this event is recorded, but none of you are featured on this. It's in speaker view, so don't worry about any of that. But yeah, returning to our pilgrimage, you're gonna hear the sound of your footsteps shortly, and I invite you to marry up your breath with the sound of your footsteps. And so you might breathe in for a certain amount of time and out for a certain amount of time. And our footsteps are how we move through a pilgrimage, but our breath is how we move through life. So thinking about the parallel between our footsteps and our breath. Okay, so we're going to do that for a few minutes and just noticing the weather inside, noticing your footsteps, noticing your breath, seeing what comes up for you. Let's set off on our pilgrimage. And we've been walking along on our pilgrimage, as you know, for a while, and we've come to another way marker. And we're going to take a little break at this way marker. And in your mind's eye, I'd like you to imagine that you're going to take a sit down. You're maybe even going to lie down and look up at the trees that are above you. And if you've got your eyes closed, you might want to open your eyes and see these trees stretching out above you. And I'm going to share with you a little nature connection exercise that I love that you can use anytime you're with any kind of nature, whether that's a house plant or you're out in the wilderness. And it's something that I loved doing when I was out in the Camino, and can help give a real sense of the gifts that nature can have for us. So as you look at this picture, I invite you just to commit to memory as much as you can of these trees that are stretching out ahead of you. So have a look at the different colours and the different patterns, the different shapes, the shadows. You might even want to imagine how these leaves might move in the wind. And then I invite you now to close your eyes and bring to your mind the exact picture of what you've just seen of these trees, like a mental snapshot. There's much detail as possible. Bring that to your mind's eye. And then I invite you to open your eyes again and have a look and see what you might have missed. Fill in the mental picture with this additional detail that you might be noticing now. Have another few moments having a look. And then I invite you to close your eyes again and bring with as much of a vivid memory as you can the picture of these trees stretching out above you. And then open your eyes again and notice, what have you missed? There's more, there's always more to see. So have another look. Even more detail, things that you didn't notice before. We'll do one more round, closing our eyes, bringing that picture to mind. Now, as you're laying here, looking up at these trees, taking a break, perhaps you want to take a sip of water, lo and behold, along comes a fellow pilgrim. Now, it's customary on the Camino to say to fellow pilgrims, buen camino, as a greeting, which means have a good pilgrimage. So maybe in your mind's eye, you say to this pilgrim, buen camino, and you greet them. But it turns out that this pilgrim would love to walk with you. And so I invite you now to begin the second leg of our pilgrimage with a conversation with someone else who's on this pilgrimage. So essentially, I'm going to pop you in a Zoom room with another person to have a conversation. And what I invite you to talk about is what brings you to this pilgrimage, what brings you here to this pilgrimage. And when you get to the end of your time together, you can say goodbye, buen camino. It's a lovely way to say goodbye to people. So hopefully you had the chance to meet some of your pilgrims. We had like a mega group of pilgrims here, people that couldn't find an assigned person. And so, yeah, we had a group of about 6 of us, I think, doing our Camino. But it's time now, just as people are coming back. Just wait, make sure we don't lose anyone along the way. One of the most important parts of the Camino, better to arrive slower and all together than on your own, but not with everyone. Let's see, 28. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. 29. Okay. Got 3 left, I believe. I always wonder what that space is between a Zoom room and a Zoom main meeting and whether it's possible to get lost. Okay, so we're going to carry on with the next step of our journey, and by that I mean we're going to enter into a bit of breathing and walking again, just that time of bit of meditation, time to connect with our breath. Some of us find this really easy to do, for others of us it's more challenging, but just engage with it as much or as little as you can, and don't try to create an experience, just see what comes up for you and fall into the role of the observer with regards to what's happening for you, and then we will be stopping off for another pit stop along the way. So here we go. So just once again moving into breathing in time with our walking and seeing where that takes us. Okay, so as you're walking along, and I wonder now if you want to check in with the weather again, see how your weather's doing inside, that emotional weather. Maybe take a look around at the landscape. Check in with your climate sorrow next to you, your heavy object still there. Lo and behold, we've come to a river. I invite you to open your eyes and take a look at this way marker. And the question that I invite you to reflect on is, what is nourishing me as I live with climate sorrow? So we know of what's hard about our climate sorrow, but what nourishes us? What helps us to keep engaged, to keep moving with love rather than giving in to overwhelming fear and despair? What is nourishing us as we live with climate sorrow? And as we look around wondering about this question, this could be a good moment to do some journaling. We'll have a few minutes if you want to, or you can just reflect. I invite you to take a moment with the river that we've stopped by. We're going to have a few minutes with this river, and a few minutes reflecting on this question of what nourishes you as you work with your climate sorrow and you feel your climate sorrow. So you may want to journal, you may just want to do this in your mind's eye, but have a stop at this river. Maybe imagine putting your feet in the river and enjoy this bit of nourishment as we think about what nourishes us. Okay, well, you know what buen camino means. It means that as you're resting by the river, some more pilgrims came your way, some other pilgrims, and it's an opportunity to have a chat with them. And seeing as you've been thinking about what nourishes you, perhaps they also have been thinking about what nourishes them. That could be the focus of your conversation together. It will be a slightly bigger group. There'll be 3 or 4 of you, and the opportunity to meet again fellow pilgrims. Maybe you want to ask again what brings you to this pilgrimage, and what's nourishing you as you walk with climate sorrow, what's helping you, and we can share a bit and learn from each other. We're going to do our last leg of walking, can you believe, already? But we're going to do something slightly different this time. So one of the things I was taught, actually by someone here, Josh, do you want to give us a wave? Because Josh walked the Camino with me and he taught me this. So as we walk, I'm going to invite you to say some kind of affirmation as you walk. And what we did was we timed this with our breath or with our steps. And the suggested affirmation is, the earth sustains me as I sustain the earth. But you can use any affirmation you like whatsoever. But the idea is that you say it in rhythm with your breath and with your walking. So the earth sustains me as I sustain the earth. Well, you might want to do it quicker, you might want to do it slower, you might want to use a different affirmation, but I'll say it one more time in case you'd like to use this one. The earth sustains me as I sustain the earth. And you don't have to kind of really think on anything, just let it work on you as we walk together over the next few minutes in our mind's eye. And so you'll hear the sound of your footsteps again as we set off. You maybe want to check in with the weather again as you're walking. Think about the terrain that you're walking through. We'll have another few minutes of that breath walking with our affirmation, and then we'll find ourselves at our next way marker. So we've been walking for quite a while now, and I might be starting to feel a bit stiff from sitting, or even stiff from walking. So I invite you, just if it feels comfortable, to just give a roll of your shoulders and maybe even a neck roll from one side to the other. I try and do this in between each of my Zoom meetings. And maybe even just lift your arms up. Give it a stretch. One side, other side. This always makes me yawn. Ooh. And then a bit of a roll of the fingers one way, and the ankles, wrists the other way, and shake out. Yes. Okay. So, we've been walking a while together. And I'm going to share my screen with you because an amazing thing has happened, which is that we have reached our arrival point. And your arrival point can be wherever you want to be right now. But I invite you once again, as we sit comfortably, maybe close your eyes so you can come into your imagination, but bring to mind your favorite place in nature. Perhaps let this be your arrival point right now. It could be your favorite childhood memory in nature. It could be your favorite place to go now. It could be a place you visited on holiday once. It could be a place you've never been to before, but you would love to go. Bring it right here around you in your mind's eye. This amazing moment, this arrival point. We've been traveling together over this past hour, and here you are at your favorite place in nature. And I invite you to think, how are you standing in your mind's eye? Or are you sitting, or did you just get here and lie down on the floor? How are you in this space? And let's really bring it into our mind's eye. What can you see? What's the weather like in this favorite place of yours? What's the landscape like? What are the colors? And what are the sounds? What do you hear? Is it birds or sea or rustling? What are the sounds? Is it quiet? Is it loud? And if you were to close your eyes in this favorite place of yours and stick your tongue out, what would you taste in the air? What would the air taste like? Or maybe there's a food that you always eat. What's that would signify to you that you're in this place? Bring that memory to your tongue. What do you smell in this beautiful place of yours, your arrival point? And I invite you to imagine that you sit down, if you're not already sat down, in this beautiful, beautiful place of yours, your favorite place. And you take a deep breath in. And let this place fill up your lungs, and a deep breath out. If you were to give a color to this place of yours, one color, what would it be? Bring that color to mind, and then imagine, as you take a deep breath in, imagine that that color of this place is filling up your lungs. And you're breathing out that color too. Do some guiding breathing with you. So take some deep breath in, long sleep, deep breath in of this beautiful color. And then a deep breath out of the same color that's filled your entire being. Deep breath in. And breathing out this color out into the world, all around you. Deep breath in. And a deep breath out. Now I invite you to very gently, maybe if your eyes are still closed, trying to keep them closed, but no matter if not, pick up your heavy weighted object in your hand again. Still doing this intentional breathing. Put your object between one hand and the other, your climate sorrow. As you breathe in this beautiful color of this arrival place that you're still in, imagine that you breathe out this color into your heavy object, into your climate sorrow. Take a deep breath in. Fill up on that beautiful color and breathe out into your climate sorrow. Deep breath in. And a deep breath out. Deep breath in. And a deep breath out. One more deep breath in of that gorgeous color. Let it fill you up. And then fill up your weighted object with this color. When you're ready, in your own time, you place that object down beside you again, with your hand still over it. And know that it's there, always grounding you as a reminder, yes, of your climate sorrow, but also of your love of nature, your capacity to ground, and of this pilgrimage and this time that we've spent together. When you're ready, in your own time, you might want to open your eyes, they've been closed, come back to the room. And as a way of sharing all together, I invite you to think of a word that summarizes your Camino experience or something that you feel about your pilgrimage this evening that you would like to share with others, and to pop that word, or it can be a phrase if it has to be, in the chat, that we can get a sense of each other and each other's journeys. So pop that in the chat as a way of sharing. Lightness. Calm, waves, light, revealing, calm, connected, peaceful. Discovery, spiritual integration. Revitalizing, connected. We sustain one another too, absolutely. A lightning, lots of light coming up. Connected, hopeful, soaring. Oh, yes. I love that. Any other words? Sometimes it can take us a moment. Words or phrases that we want to share. Once we do that, if there's any more to come, I want to read a little quote that I literally, I've had this book by my side. It's by Jeff Foster, The Way of Rest. Someone recommended it to me. I've not read it, just to be upfront with you. But just as I was preparing for this event, I flipped it open on this page and it spoke to me so much, and I thought, I'm going to read this out. So this is by Jeff Foster, The Way of Rest, finding the courage to hold everything in love. And it speaks to me about my climate sorrow, and I thought I would share it with you. So he says, there is dignity in falling apart, being a little more of your crazy, unhinged, unfiltered, uncensored, uncontrolled self. Bow to all of the ancient energies that are now surging through you. An old life is falling away. A new life has not yet I actually don't know how to say this word. Coagulated. Thanks, guys. I can see some nods. Okay. And you stand now on holy ground, full of raging aliveness and possibility, broken open, but alive to those lost parts of yourself, in touch with ecstasies and pains you thought you would never feel again, energies you had repressed since childhood or even before. Your suffering is not a mistake or a punishment, and ultimately it is not even yours. I just read that and I loved it so much. It was such a beautiful quote to me, so I hope it might speak to some of you as well. I mentioned at the beginning that I had an offering that I'm really excited about, and I wondered if I could have your permission really to share a little bit of this offering with you. If you're happy for me to share it with you, maybe give me a thumbs up, either as an emoji or, oh great, lots of thumbs up. Okay. Liz says yes please. That's great. Okay, well, yes. This is actually you are the absolute first people to hear this in the world. So it's very exciting for me. So when I was burning out, I mentioned at the beginning, one of the things that I wish I'd had was a place where I could have regular resourcing. So I did, these kinds of things, like one-off things, or I was kind of part of support groups that were ongoing, but I didn't have something that was like specific climate input and was ongoing. And had that community element of other people around me to sort of help me build resilience. And so I thought a year ago, like, I'm going to have a go at making something. So I created the rest of activism, which is all about the other parts of activism. So we learn about, campaign strategy, maybe climate policy, direct action, or whatever parts of climate activism we're involved in. But where do we learn how to sustain ourselves? Where do we learn about how to rest? Where do we learn about how to be sustainable in our activism? So this is what I'm opening up and sharing with you today. But before I do, I want to tell you a bit of the backstory. So I actually first of all thought I'm going to work with organizations, because that was my world. So I opened this program, the rest of activism, up to some of the UK's most influential climate NGOs, and we piloted that. We have been piloting that together over the past year, and I thought, no, this has to be available not just to grassroots activists but also to members of the public as well. And so I got a grant to be able to open this up to the general public as well. So this is really if you're feeling lonely or isolated or burned out or under-supported in carrying your climate sorrow or in doing your climate activism, then this is really your opportunity, if you'd like to take hold of it, to get that resourcing. And it's all about, getting our energy back, feeling like we're in community, reconnecting with that joy so that we can keep facing into what's happening and stay open and resilient and creative to what's happening. I know that when I burnt out, I felt so much despair and cynicism, and I was so exhausted, and I thought, well, I can't fix the climate crisis. I'm never going to feel any different from this. And through my burnout recovery, I've realized, oh my goodness, like it's possible to face fully into what's happening and still feel joy, and in some way they are connected. I was talking to someone in my small group that I was put in about the swifts and the swallows that have just come back. We were in the UK, and we're saying the grief of them leaving, but then it amplifies the joy when they return, and these two things, they are connected. And it's possible to experience that, but sometimes when we haven't got that time for self-care and we're not held in community, it can feel like it's just bogging us down. So that's what the rest of activism is, and it's essentially it's weekly sessions for half an hour, very similar to what we've just had, but shorter, live with me and with others, visualizations, discussion, meditations, that kind of thing. And then there's this whole other part of it. There's an online resources library with video and video resources. There's recommended reading. There's practice prompts that come to you by email. There's courses. There's bonus sessions with other wellbeing experts. There's support groups. It's this kind of whole wellbeing package, and the value of the membership is £120 a month, but because of this grant, I'm able to offer it for £12 a month to the first 120 people that sign up to it. And you are literally the first people that I've told about it. My colleague Sarah, I think, is going to drop the link to that in the chat if you want to take hold of the membership and you're interested in finding out more. And I'm also happy to hang back on this call and answer any questions that you have about it, or you can email me, that's fine. And the other thing is, there's a free group as well, the Self-Care for Climate Activists group, which Sarah dropped the details about, which you're very welcome to join as well. And I know that some of you have heard about this event through that. But yeah, if you want to take hold of that opportunity, it would be so lovely to travel with you through the membership. If you sign up tonight, you can join us for our session on Thursday. Got a great session. We're taking a deep dive into some of the tools and techniques for resilience building. But other than that, we've finished ahead of schedule, which is really not like me at all, but I'm pleased. And I'm going to hang back a little bit if you've got any questions about the membership or anything like that. But yeah, until next time, whenever that might be, whether that's Thursday or in the group or at another event, I just wish you all the very best with this intense, all-encompassing journey that we are on through and beyond our climate sorrow. And I thank you so much for taking this time out to spend with me, and just checking I haven't forgotten to say anything, because I know there was one other thing actually, yes, on my mind, which was just about the membership, which is there's some frequently asked questions on the webpage that you might want to have a look at. Things like, if I'm part of a climate organisation already, can I join? Yes. If I'm not in the UK, can I join? Yes. Those kinds of things. So have a look there. But yes, stick around if you want to ask me some questions. If not, have the most wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for joining. It's been wonderful to meet you, and buen camino.